The fluorescent lights in the baggage claim area of Denver International Airport always had this weird, sterile hum to them, you know? Not the kind you really hear with your ears, but the kind that vibrates in the back of your skull. A dull pressure. It was late, maybe past 11, and the place was mostly empty, just a scattered handful of us waiting for the last bags off a delayed flight from Seattle. Long day. Conference was over, brain was fried. All I wanted was my suitcase and a shuttle to the hotel. Maya was standing next to me, her phone clutched in her hand, scrolling through something, probably work emails. She always had to be connected, even after a 12-hour day of keynote speeches and networking. Her hair, a rich, dark auburn, was pulled back in a loose ponytail, a few strands escaping to frame her face. Even tired, there was a kind of vibrant energy about her. Her eyes, a striking hazel, darted across the screen, catching the light. She was wearing a simple fitted black long-sleeve top and dark wash jeans that hugged her figure in all the right places. I remember watching the way the fabric stretched across her chest when she shifted her weight, the subtle curve of her breasts beneath, a soft, inviting line. It was just a glance, a fleeting observation, but it stuck, a little spark in the quiet exhaustion. The carousel was sluggish, a low mechanical rumble that echoed in the vast empty space. It spun empty for what felt like an eternity. That's when I first noticed it. Not the normal airport hum, not the machinery. This was different. It was a subtle vibration, starting in my feet, then moving up through my legs. A low rhythmic thrum. It felt internal, like my own pulse, but externalized, amplified. I frowned, trying to pinpoint it. Was it the building's foundation? Some massive HVAC unit? But it felt too close, too personal. Anything good? I asked Maya, trying to break the silence, mostly my own internal silence, to see if she'd heard it too. She sighed, looking up from her phone, her lips, naturally full and glossy even without lipstick, forming a slight pout. Just a passive-aggressive email from Jordan about next quarter's projections. You'd think he'd give it a rest for one night. She rolled her eyes, and a small, genuine smile touched her mouth. It was a nice smile, easy, and it made her whole face light up, those flawless cheekbones catching the overhead glare. My gaze drifted down her neck, past the delicate curve of her collarbone, to the slight swell of her chest, a silent appreciation. I felt a quick, almost guilty flush. Jordan's a machine, I said, trying to sound nonchalant, pulling my eyes away from her, back to the empty carousel. He probably sleeps in a data center. The hum was still there, now a faint, steady beat, a little faster than before. It felt like a low-frequency bass note, deep in my chest. I placed a hand over my sternum, almost unconsciously. It wasn't my heart racing. It was just there. Asterisk thump thump. Thump thump. Asterisk steady, familiar. Then he appeared, just walked around the corner from the direction of the escalators. A man. Nondescript. Average height, average build, wearing a dark, plain jacket and faded jeans. His face was forgettable. Not ugly, not handsome, just neutral, like a face you'd pass 100 times and never remember. But there was something about his eyes. They were fixed on the carousel, not scanning for a bag, but staring with an unnerving intensity, as if he was waiting for something far more significant than a suitcase. He stopped maybe 20 feet from us, a little to our left, and just stood there, perfectly still. The hum seemed to pulse with his arrival. It definitely sped up a fraction, or maybe my own heart had. Finally, Maya murmured, pointing. A single battered black suitcase emerged from the flap, followed by a few more. Mine was a distinctive dark blue, Maya's a bright red. We'd bought them together for a team trip last year, a little inside joke about standing out. As our bags started to appear, the man hadn't moved, his gaze was still locked on the carousel, even as other passengers started to filter in, claiming their luggage. He didn't seem to have a bag himself. Or maybe he was just waiting. But the way he stood, so utterly motionless, was unsettling, like a statue carved out of the background noise. I grabbed my blue bag, heaving it off the belt. Maya's red one followed quickly, and she pulled it off with a practiced ease. Her movements were fluid, graceful. I noticed the way her jeans pulled taut over her hips as she bent, a momentary distracting flash of desire. It was stupid, I knew. Here we were, exhausted, in a sterile airport, and my brain was still fixating on the curve of her anus. It felt almost inappropriate, given the quiet unease that had settled over me. We started to walk towards the exit, rolling our bags. That I glanced back at the man. That he was still there, still staring at the now empty carousel, his back to us. The hum, I realized, was still with me. That it hadn't stopped. That it was like a silent companion, a persistent echo of my own heartbeat, only not quite. That it felt borrowed. We got to the curb, and the night air was cold, crisp, a welcome change from the recycled airport air. Finally, Maya said, exhaling, her breath misting in the cold. She pulled her small carry-on closer, her arm brushing mine. That I felt a faint warmth, a fleeting contact that sent a little jolt through me. Her skin was soft, I imagined. The shuttle arrived quickly, a big white van that we climbed in, tossing our bags into the back. The hum faded a little once we were inside, replaced by the rumble of the engine and the driver's low chatter on his radio. That I tried to shake it off. Long day, tired brain, probably just a low-frequency hum from the airport machinery playing tricks on my ears. But the man, that he was still there in my mind, the way he stood, the way he stared. The next morning, I woke up in the hotel room feeling surprisingly refreshed. Despite the late night, the hum was gone. Good, that I must have been overtired. Maya and I had breakfast in the hotel restaurant. She was wearing a loose-fitting, cream-colored sweater and a pair of dark blue leggings. Her hair was down today, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, catching the light as she moved. As she reached for a coffee cup, the sleeve of her sweater pulled back, revealing the delicate curve of her wrist. That I found myself staring for a moment too long, imagining the feel of her skin. That it was an involuntary reaction, a raw, primal flicker, and I quickly averted my eyes, feeling a pang of guilt. We were talking about the conference, debriefing, when I saw him again. That he was sitting at a table near the window, alone, stirring a cup of coffee. The same man from the airport. Same plain jacket. That he wasn't looking at us, just out the window, but my stomach still clenched. This was a different hotel, a good 20 minutes from the airport. What were the chances? Hey, I said, my voice lower than I intended. Maya looked up mid-sentence. You see that guy? I nodded subtly towards the window. She glanced over. The one with the dark jacket? Yeah, what about him? He was at the airport last night, I said, keeping my voice down. Baggage claim, just standing there staring at the carousel that didn't seem to have a bag. Maya shrugged, taking a sip of her coffee. Probably just a weird coincidence. Long flights make people do weird things. Maybe he lost his luggage? She didn't seem too concerned. Her focus was back on her breakfast, her lips slightly parted as she considered her next bite of croissant. That I watched her, a weird mix of relief and frustration. Relief that she wasn't instantly alarmed, frustration that she wasn't picking up on the same odd feeling I had. My eyes drifted down her body, taking in the soft lines of her leggings, the way they hugged her calves. Her ankles, delicate, were visible above her small, white sneakers. But it wasn't a coincidence. Not really. Later that day, I had a few hours to kill before my flight home. Maya's flight was earlier, so we said our goodbyes in the lobby. I watched her walk towards the shuttle, her red suitcase rolling behind her. Her hips swayed slightly as she moved, a natural, unconscious rhythm that drew my eye. I imagined reaching out, just touching the small of her back. The thought was fleeting, almost a phantom sensation, but it lingered, a quiet ache beneath the surface of my unease. I decided to grab a coffee from a little independent place a few blocks from the hotel. The air was still cold, but the sun was out, making the city look bright and inviting. As I was walking back, balancing a hot latte, I passed a small park, and there he was, sitting on a bench, feeding pigeons, the same jacket, the same forgettable face. This time he looked up as I passed, his eyes, those unervingly blank eyes, met mine. Just for a second. No smile, no nod, no recognition. Just a direct, unwavering gaze. The hum returned. Asterisk thump thump. Thump thump. Asterisk. It was back in my chest, a deep, resonant vibration that felt like it was coming from inside me, yet also from the air around me. It was too fast, too regular to be just my imagination. It felt like his heartbeat. Or, more disturbingly, our heartbeats synchronized. I kept walking, heart pounding, the coffee sloshing in my cup. My hands were suddenly cold. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. This was something else. I got back to my hotel room and immediately locked the door. I paced for a bit, trying to rationalize it. Denver isn't a huge city, but it's not small either that it's possible he's a tourist or here for another conference and our paths just keep crossing. But the airport, then the hotel, then a random park? It felt orchestrated. I pulled out my laptop, thinking I'd try to distract myself, maybe do some research on strange phenomena. But my fingers hovered over the keyboard that I felt exposed, like he was watching that I pulled the curtains shut, even though my room was on the 9th floor. The hum was constant now, a low thrum that vibrated through the floor, through the walls that it was in the air. In my bones that it felt like it was everywhere that I pressed my ear against the wall, listening. Nothing but the muffled sounds of a hotel. But the hum persisted, a phantom rhythm. I called Maya that I needed to talk to someone who knew me, someone who was there. She answered on the third ring, her voice a little breathless. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked. "You sound a little off." "Yeah, no, I'm fine," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice was tight. "Just, something weird happened. That guy from the airport? I saw him again. In the hotel restaurant this morning, and then again just now in a park a few blocks away." There was a pause on the other end. "Okay, that's a little strange," she admitted, "but maybe he's just visiting like us. You know, same tourist spots." "It didn't feel like that, Maya," I insisted, pacing the small room. "He was just sitting there, staring, and his eyes, they were fixed on me, and then this hum started again, this weird rhythmic thrumming in my chest like a heartbeat but not mine." She chuckled, a light, disbelieving sound. "You're tired, narrator's name, that you've been on edge since that last project. Probably just your imagination playing tricks. Or maybe you just need to get home and decompress." "No, I'm serious," I said, my voice rising a little. "It's like he's following me. Or he knows something." Another pause. "Look, I'm at the gate, they're boarding soon. Just try to relax, okay? Get on your flight, get home. If you see him again, just ignore him. He's probably just some harmless eccentric." "Yeah," I said, but the word felt hollow. "Yeah, you're probably right. Have a good flight." We hung up. Her dismissal, though well-intentioned, only amplified my isolation. I felt like I was losing my mind, but I knew what I was experiencing. The hum was real. The man was real. I tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. Every shadow in the room seemed to stretch and shift. Every creak of the building sounded like footsteps outside my door. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting a message from Maya, half dreading it. I found myself thinking about her again, about the way her lips curved when she smiled, the easy confidence in her stride, the way her hair fell around her shoulders. It was a strange comfort, a warm, distracting current against the cold dread. I imagined her on her flight, high above the clouds, oblivious to the creeping unease I felt. A fleeting image of her, curled up in a seat, her long legs tucked beneath her, flashed through my mind, and for a moment, the hum seemed to soften, replaced by a different kind of thrum, a more intimate rhythm. Hours crawled by. My flight wasn't until midnight that I decided to head to the airport early. Maybe being around more people would help. The hum was still there, a constant companion, a silent drummer in my chest. The airport was bustling, a welcome change from the quiet desolation of the night before. I checked my bag, went through security, and found my gate. It was still hours before boarding, so I found a quiet corner in a coffee shop, ordered a latte and tried to read. The hum, however, persisted. It was subtle, almost subliminal, but it was there, a low rhythmic pulse that felt like it was trying to synchronize with my own heartbeat. I started to notice other people. Were they feeling it too? I watched a woman tap her foot to an unheard beat. A man across from me, head nodding slightly. Was it the hum? Or just their own internal rhythms? I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd browse some news, but the screen flickered strangely. The Wi-Fi signal seemed weak, even though I was in a crowded area. I opened my photo gallery, just to scroll through some old pictures, anything to ground myself. And then I saw it. A photo I didn't remember taking. It was a picture of me from behind. I was standing at the baggage carousel last night, reaching for my blue suitcase. Maya was next to me, her red bag already in hand, her back to the camera. The angle was slightly off, a little low, as if taken from hip level, and in the background, out of focus but undeniably there, was him. The man, standing exactly where I'd seen him, staring at the carousel. My breath hitched. My hands started to tremble. I scrolled through my photos. No other odd pictures. Just this one. It had a timestamp from last night, around 11:45 p.m. How? How did that get on my phone? I hadn't given anyone my phone. I hadn't even taken it out at the carousel. My phone had been in my pocket. My mind raced. Was it a hack? Some weird glitch? But the image was too specific, too clear. It was a picture of me, taken from a perspective I hadn't been aware of, with him in the background. The hum intensified. It was no longer just a feeling. It was a sound now, a low, resonant thump-thump, thump-thump that seemed to emanate from the very air, vibrating the table, the floor, my chair. It was the sound of a giant, slow heart beating. And it was perfectly synchronized with my own. I looked up, scanning the crowded coffee shop. My eyes darted from face to face, searching for him. He was there, sitting at a small table near the window, a cup of coffee in front of him, just like at the hotel. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking out the window at the tarmac, at the planes. But I knew he knew I was looking at him. I could feel it. A prickling sensation on the back of my neck. My heart was pounding now, a frantic drum against the slow, steady thrum of the hum. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But I was frozen, trapped in my seat, the phone still clutched in my hand, the image of myself at the carousel staring back at me. I forced myself to breathe, to think. This couldn't be real. It had to be a trick. A hallucination. But the photo was on my phone. The timestamp was undeniable. I got up, my legs feeling like lead. I needed to get away from him. I needed to get on my flight. I needed to be home. I walked towards the gate, not looking back, but feeling his gaze on me, a physical weight. The hum followed, growing louder, more insistent, vibrating in my teeth, in my skull. As I approached my gate, I saw a monitor displaying flight information. My flight, 12:05 a.m. to Seattle, was listed as delayed. No explanation, just delayed. A cold dread washed over me. Of course I found a seat near the window, away from the main crowd. I tried to call Maya again, but my phone just gave me a static-filled error message. No signal. Even though the airport Wi-Fi showed full bars, the hum was almost deafening now, a deep, resonant bass note that seemed to fill the entire concourse. I saw other people glancing around, frowning, some tapping their fingers, some looking vaguely uncomfortable. Were they hearing it too? Or just feeling the unsettling vibration? I saw a cleaning crew pushing their carts down the concourse, their voices echoing strangely. The fluorescent lights above flickered, just for a second, then steadied. Then a voice, soft, almost a whisper, but it cut through the hum, clear as a bell. You're waiting for something, aren't you? I spun around. He was standing right behind me. How did he get there? I hadn't seen him approach. He was maybe 2 feet away, too close, his face utterly devoid of expression. His eyes, those blank, unsettling eyes, were fixed on mine. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to outpace the relentless hum that seemed to emanate from him. Everyone waits, he continued, his voice still a whisper, but it filled my head, seemed to resonate directly in my brain. For a bag, for a flight, for a connection, for a feeling. He took a step closer. I instinctively leaned back, pressing myself against the window. The cold glass felt good against my skin. You were waiting for her, he said, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. It was a chilling, empty smile. At the carousel, and at the restaurant, and in the park. My blood ran cold. He knew about Maya. He knew about my thoughts. The intrusive ones, the ones I'd felt guilty about. You thought about her, he whispered, his eyes boring into mine. The way her top fit, the curve of her hips, her legs, her feet, the soft skin of her wrist. You imagined touching her. He listed them, one by one, the exact thoughts, the exact observations I'd made, the ones that had flashed through my mind in moments of distraction, of exhaustion, of desire. He was reciting my own internal monologue back to me. The hum pulsed violently, matching the frantic beat of my own heart. It felt like my skull was going to crack open. It's a powerful thing, waiting, he said, his voice now a little louder, though still soft, still unnervingly calm. It opens you up, makes you receptive. He paused, and his gaze dropped to my chest, right where the hum felt strongest, to other rhythms. He reached out a hand slowly, his fingers were long, pale that I flinched, but I couldn't move that I was paralyzed by fear, by the sheer, terrifying intimacy of his knowledge. His hand stopped inches from my chest that I could feel the faint warmth radiating from his palm. "The carousel?" he said, his eyes back on mine, a strange, knowing glint in them. "It hums at a low, constant frequency that it's always there waiting. And it finds a resonance that I in everyone, especially those who are open." He finally touched me, not with his hand but with his finger, lightly, right over my sternum. That it was a feather-light touch, but it sent a jolt of ice through my entire body. The hum reached a crescendo, a deafening, overwhelming vibration that seemed to tear through the very fabric of the AI. It wasn't just my heartbeat anymore. It was everything. The airport, the planes, the people, the very structure of reality. It was all beating in unison, a single, vast, terrifying heart. My vision blurred, the lights in the concourse seemed to intensify, then dim, then flicker wildly. The faces of the people around me stretched and distorted, their murmurs becoming a guttural roar. He leaned in closer, his breath, cold and stale, ghosting over my ear. "And sometimes," he whispered, his voice now a resonant echo within the hum finds its way in and it stays. Then he straightened up, his hand dropped, the hum just as suddenly began to recede. It didn't disappear entirely, but it faded, becoming once again that low rhythmic thrum, deep in my chest, a persistent internal echo. He turned and walked away, just walked, blended into the crowd. I watched him go, my eyes stinging, my body trembling uncontrollably. I wanted to call out, to stop him, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. My throat was raw. The airport lights steadied, the faces of the people around me returned to normal. The sounds of the concourse, the announcements, the chatter, slowly came back into focus. No one seemed to have noticed anything. No one was looking at me. They were just waiting. I sat there for a long time, my heart still racing, the hum a dull, constant thrum in my chest. My flight was still delayed. I didn't care. I just wanted to be anywhere else. Eventually, hours later, the flight was called. I boarded, found my seat, and buckled in. The plane took off, climbing into the night sky, leaving Denver behind. I stared out the window at the city lights twinkling below, feeling utterly hollowed out. The hum is still with me. I feel it now, even as I'm telling you this. A low, rhythmic thrum, deep in my chest, perfectly synchronized with my own heartbeat. But not quite. It's a constant reminder. Of the airport. Of the stranger. Of the thoughts I had. I never saw him again. But sometimes when I'm alone in a quiet room I can almost hear his whisper echoing in my mind. And sometimes when I look at Maya or at any woman and those thoughts, those intrusive human thoughts, begin to surface, the hum intensifies. It pulses, a little faster, a little stronger. A reminder that I am open, receptive, and that something else is always listening, always waiting, and it's inside me now.